In Haiti, the signing of the Book of Condolence at the National Pantheon marks the beginning of the memorial service for President Jovenel Moïse. Tunisia is facing its worst coronavirus surge since the pandemic began. Further stress in the North African countries already crowd hospitals and health system. The Palestinian Hamas movement called on the Islamic community to encourage resistance in response to the recent Israeli attacks on Syria and Lebanon. Hello, welcome to From the South. I am Janet Perez Moya from the teleSUR studios in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. In Haiti, the signing of the Book of Condolence at the National Pantheon marks the beginning of the memorial service for President Jovenel Moïse. Diplomats and friends of the presidential family attend this Tuesday at the National Museum in the Haitian Pantheon to sign the Book of Condolence. The First Lady, Martine Moïse, seized the occasion to thank the Haitian people for their compassion and solidarity, while announcing the intention to cover the president's funeral expense without detracting from the official and national characters of the ceremonies. Other tributes in honor of Moïse are planned to be held during the week. On Monday, the government of Haiti extended the mandate of 4 ministers of state, including Foreign Minister Claude Joseph, as well as those responsible for health, justice, and finance. Prime Minister Ariel Henry, nominated by the assassinated former President Jovenel Moïse on July 7, will finally hold the country's mandate. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Health will continue to be presided over by Maria Greta Roy, who was remain in the same position for seven different presidential terms. On the other hand, the Ministry of Economy and Finance will continue to be headed by Patrick Michel Boisbert, while Rockefeller Vincent will remain at the head of the Ministry of Justice. Each time new elements appear in the investigations of the assassination in Haiti, it puts the spotlight also in the Haitian political and business elites and the Latin America ultra-right.
Now, it is easier to understand the image of these cars after Colombian hired killers reduced their policemen without much difficulty. Just a few hours before, the assassination was already consummated, just 2 kilometers up the same road. The mercenaries did not seem to have been stampeding or on the run. Here, the mercenaries ask a local journalist not to take pictures. They allow passage, and recording continues of the 6 vans used during a private military operation. In one of them, the police would later find the stolen loot and the hard disk with the crime images still undeveloped. One of the Haitian Americans of the commando appears to be waiting calmly. The commando was instructed to wait calmly, but with whom was one of the operations recruiters coordinating their departure? The current image of the house that served as a refuge, owned by an ally of President Jovenel Moïse, shows the clashes after the arrival of security forces. But essential questions remain to be answered. Who ordered 2 weeks earlier to kill everyone in the presidential residence and then agreed with CTU security to assassinate only Mr. President? Once the facts were consummated, the mercenary contractor did not answer any more calls and put padlocks on its corporate social networks. CTU Security is registered as Academia Federal Unidad contra el Terrorismo, with Arcángel Preter Ortiz as one of its members, a former member of the Colombian Army, a native of Cali and resident of Florida. The main owner is Tony Intriago, a migrant of Venezuelan origin, who championed among the elites of the Latin American alt-right. He is also seen holding hands with Colombian President Iván Duque and his political boss, Álvaro Uribe, as well as sharing as a partner in companies owned by his friend's friends. According to the Florida Corporate Registry, Intriago has been a partner of the Fundación Latinoamericanos Unidos, of Alfred Santamaría, of Colombian origin and close ties with Uribe elite. Alfred Santamaria and Tony Intriago have shared not only events of their supposed non-profit associations, but the foundation itself, accepted by the OAS as a civil society, has publicly served as a sounding board for CTU security. The contractor's logo appeared as a sponsor of Álvaro Uribe's dinner and dance in Miami in 2015 to raise funds to help Salgar after a tragedy in the former president's native municipality in Antioquia. The connections of the mercenary contractor with the elites of the Latin American right wing is in the spotlight again now, as this private jet brought back to Haiti the widow of Jovenel Moïse. The executive jet, registration HI-949, was the same one used by Tony Intriago, along with the rest of planners, financiers, and contractors, less than 2 months before the assassination, on May 21st. The aircraft, operated by Helidosa S.A., a company linked to the former presidential candidate of the Dominican Republic, Gonzalo Castillo, transported to Barbados in May 2020 the team of the opposition candidate Juan Guaidó, also denounced for contracting the private military operation Gideon against President Nicolás Maduro.
Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel urged to prioritize attention to social programs in the country. The president made this statement during a meeting of the government ground for the control of COVID-19. Díaz-Canel pointed out that the state institution must be prepared to respond to the demands of the popular sectors. He also insists on the need to strengthen the economy and guarantee the population's access to basic rights such as education, science, culture, and social security.
The economy must be strengthened, focusing constantly on prosperity, developing social programs more efficiently and broadly, education, science, culture, sports, security, and social services. And we must define ways of how we are going to protect the most vulnerable and promote a culture that provides a true quality of care and of all the services provided to the population.
President Díaz-Canel stated that all institutions must be prepared to meet the needs of the people.
No institutional structure, no state structure can be oblivious to the problems that exist in the neighborhood. And coordinating efforts among all of us, together with the massed organizations and the elements of the government at the municipal level, should lead us to achieve comprehensive action plans in the neighborhoods.
Colombians gathered in Bogotá in fresh protests against the government of President Iván Duque. The demonstration comes as the country celebrates its Independence Days, with protesters seeking to resume an anti-government campaign. Dozens of people arrived at the different meeting points in Bogotá, one of the main centers of the demonstrations against President Iván Duque that broke out on April 28 and have been going on since, with more intense days than others. The National Strike Committee, which gathers unions, students, indigenous and social organizations, called for march and rallies in the main cities of the country after having temporarily suspend them on June 15. Almost a dozen cities imposed night curfews to avoid disturbance. We will take a short break now. Don't go away. Welcome back. Tunisia is facing its worst coronavirus surge since the pandemic began, further stressing the North African country's already crowded hospitals and health system. The pressure of the new cases and hospitalizations has forced some regions to go back into lockdown and prompted a wave of donations of vaccines or medical aid from China, France, Turkey, Italy, the United Arab Emirates, and Algeria. Some hospitals have been forced to transfer COVID-19 patients to other hospitals as supplies become limited. Tunisia has appealed internationally for help, with their response being that aid has been arriving from countries both near and far.
We have a fraternal relationship with our Egyptian brothers, especially in the health field. These subsidies and gifts enable us to develop our healing capabilities and to investigate and to treat patients with coronavirus. It is a veritable air bridge being run by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for the benefit of Tunisia in this critical period. We are so happy as the aid is of great value and high quality, from advanced German and American-made equipment and quantities of vaccines.
Authorities of the French government announced Monday that the European country is now facing the fourth wave of the COVID-19 pandemic, which is stronger and has a faster impact due to the predominance of the Delta strain of the virus. Government spokesperson Gabriel Attal said that the country has registered a sudden and accelerated increase in the rate of incidence of the virus, something that has not occurred since the beginning of the pandemic. Attal recalled the government was taking all measures to ensure that this new wave will not become more devastating. As virus infections surge in the Japanese capital, International Olympic Committee Communications Director Mark Adams warns and states the committee has worked to reduce it as far as possible.
You know, we understand concerns. These are difficult times, but I think we'd like to reassure them again that everything is being done. I mean, today I think the latest figure is we've had nearly 30,000 tests at the airport of staff and all those staff and athletes, all stakeholders. Each of those nearly 30,000 people has been tested twice before they even arrive. So all those people have had 3 tests that is going on, and the isolation and the playbooks are very, very strict indeed. Is there zero risk? There can never be zero risk, but we have reduced it as far as we think is humanly possible.
In Cuba, 3 municipalities in the province of Matanzas are very close to complete vaccination against COVID-19 with the domestically produced Abdala. Authorities explain that the vaccination program is nearing completion in the municipalities of Cárdenas and Colón, where more than 235,000 citizens will be immunized with the domestically produced vaccine. A few weeks ago, the municipality of Los Arabos also started the program, so they expect to continue opening new vaccination centers in other municipalities. With a call for solidarity, love, and the elimination of the blockade, the Cuba Solidarity Movement in the United States held a press conference to reaffirm its commitment to the island and announce the successful campaign to send 6 million vaccination syringes to Cuba. At the meeting, which took place in the Embassy of the Republic of Cuba in Washington, D.C., members of the movement spoke about the campaign to collect funds for the purchase of syringes that were recently sent to Cuba in support of the fight against COVID-19. Likewise, group member Medea Benjamin noted that they will continue to collect funds to send not only syringes, but medicines and medical supplies as a sign of how many people in the U.S. wants to help the Cuban people. U.S. Special Presidential Envoy for Climate John Kerry said in London that although China and U.S. have many differences, both nations must lead the way in the climate crisis.
So it is imperative that we, the United States, the second biggest emitter, and China, and the rest of the world, are all pulling together in the same direction in this critical effort. In a remarkably short, the best opportunity that we have to secure a reasonable climate future is for China and the United States to work together. And the best way to do so is to lay out specific, ambitious, near-term reduction goals and back them up with serious policy and work together to set an example to the world of where we need to go and how we can get there.
Russian President Vladimir Putin held on Tuesday a meeting with his Azerbaijan counterpart Ilham Aliyev in Moscow, where he sends the compromise of the Azerbaijan president towards the settlement with Armenia to end last year's conflict over dispute Nagorno-Karabakh.
One of the most important issues remains the settlement of the situation in the region. I know that you pay great attention and importance to this. I would like to thank you for finding compromises. It's always the most difficult thing. But if we seek, and we all seek, the settlement, we need to follow this path. And up to the present, we have managed to do it.
More stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back. The Palestinian Hamas movement called on the Islamic community to encourage resistance in response to the recent Israeli attacks on Syria and Lebanon. The Palestinian resistance movement stated that the attacks perpetrated by Tel Aviv against Syria and Lebanon represent an intimidatory actions against the entire region. The hostilities are taking place in the context of the Islamic holiday of Eid al-Adha, which marks the last day of the rituals of the annual Muslims' pilgrimage to Mecca. The Islamic organization spokesman points out that the broad resistance in the Islamic world, using all its power and capabilities, is the only way to stop the Tel Aviv's aggressions. Muslims around the world are celebrating the Eid al-Adha religious holiday, which in Arabic means Festival of the Sacrifice. This festival marks the end of the Hajj, the 5 days pilgrimage Muslims undertake to cleanse the soul of sins and instill a sense of equality and brotherhood. The day is marked with the sacrifice of an animal, usually a goat, sheep, or a cow, and the distribution of the meat among neighbors, family members, and the poor. In Iraq, around 30 people lost their lives following the explosion of a handcraft construction device inside a city. The Iraqi government reported that it was a terrorist attack on the eve of the Muslim Feast of Sacrifice. The government noted that the death toll ranged from 28 to 30 deaths, including several minors. The security forces deployed at the site of the attacks and indicated that at least 15 injured victims were taken to the hospital. Iran's Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei has called for global condemnation of the meddling of the United States and its allies in the region. Addressing followers during the annual Islamic pilgrimage of the Hajj, the Iranian spiritual leader and politician stressed that the region has suffered Western interference for over a century. He noted that this has led to disputes and separation among Muslims, preventing them from enjoying the full spirituality of the holy pilgrimage. In Afghanistan, the head of the High Council for National Reconciliation, Abdullah, says the Afghani people expect much more from the latest talks in Doha between the Afghan government and Taliban, and add that the door for negotiations is open.
Well, of both sides. And we also came here to tell them that we have come with seriousness, but at the same time, we are flexible, and it requires flexibility from both sides. So in the past 2 days, we also agreed that there should be no pause in the negotiations. While the collaboration and support from the international community will continue in many different ways, there wouldn't be the presence of international troops. Certainly, it had an impact.
Foreign Minister of Russia, Sergei Lavrov, and Nicaragua, Denis Moncada, held meetings in Moscow. The talks were described by the Nicaraguan Foreign Minister, Denis Moncada, as productive and positive. These negotiations promote bilateral cooperation between the two countries in areas such as economic, security, information, food, and transportation. It was also reported that both authorities signed a collaboration agreement to guarantee international information security. More than 30 people have died in the Indian city of Mumbai after an intense burst of rainfall caused a landslide and wall collapse, as changing monsoon patterns due to the climate change lead to more extreme rains across India. According to India's National Disaster Response Force, rescue efforts continue through the night, with workers digging through mud and debris to find survivors. The rain also inundated a water purification plant, leaving part of the city without drinking water. Mumbai residents were advised to boil water from the tap before consuming it. We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. For Telesur English, I am Janet Perez Moya. Thank you for watching.